Hi, and welcome to That's Ready Mysterious. Join me for an intriguing look into real-life mysteries. Who was the mad gasser of Mattoon? What was whaling at the Wilga waterhole? I'm not going to solve those mysteries, but they'll be interesting to learn about. I'm your host, Kelly with an I. Transcripts and references for all episodes can be found at that'sreadymysterious.wordpress.com. No apostrophe and no exclamation point. Today's tale is about Dr. Cecilia Giubileo. After Dr. Giubileo's disappearance, journalist Enrique Estridge said, "From the mysterious disappearance, not only a sense of fear and insecurity was generated among the population, but also of belief in justice in the police." What happened to Cecilia Giubileo? Dr. Cecilia Enriqueta Giubileo was born in Lincoln, Buenos Aires, in Argentina in 1945. She studied medicine in Cordoba, where she met Pablo Cabral, and the pair were married in 1972. During the previous military dictatorship, two of Cabral's brothers-in-law were members of the People's Revolution Army, or ERP. They were missing. A gang had also kidnapped his father-in-law. Cecilia and Pablo had to flee to Greece and Spain. A few months later, Cecilia went back to Argentina alone. She graduated as a doctor in 1973. In 1974, Cecilia started working at the Hospital Interzonal Colonia Dier Domingo Cadbred, which was a specialized neuropsychiatric hospital, also known as Open Door. She moved to Luján, which is 80 kilometers or 49.7 miles from Buenos Aires. She rented a house on Humberto I Street and had an office in Torres. Cecilia disappeared on June 16, 1985, shortly before midnight. She was just 39 years old. On the night before her disappearance, Cecilia had called her mother and said, "Mom, I have to tell you something terrible," but was cut off before she could say more. On the night of her disappearance, Cecilia had gone to the emergency room in the Montes de Oca neighborhood, part of the Open Door colony, at 9:38 p.m. While there, she signed a death certificate for a 23-year-old patient named Patricia Villalba. Then she checked on and medicated another patient with a fever and bronchitis. She checked on and medicated a patient who had flared up and who should have been checked on by someone else. A doctor who was supposed to be on duty on the night shift hadn't shown up for their shift. For some reason, the colony had been cut off from the outside. The telephone switch hadn't been working for hours. Miguel Loco Cano, an internee in the colony, walked with Cecilia for the 500 meters, or 1,640.5 feet, from Pavilion 7, where Cecilia had treated a patient, to the medical house. On the way there, the pair met Nurse Navarro and Supervisor Nalida Onwez. The nurse asked Cecilia, "Any news, doctor?" And Cecilia replied, "I come from Pavilion 7. I treated a giant urticaria." Urticaria is the medical term for hives. Cecilia then had a conversation with Onwez, who asked Cecilia to tell him immediately when she needs to go to ward. Cecilia cut Onwez off, saying that it was unfair that she had to attend to a patient and couldn't go looking for her supervisor every time that happened. Onwez responded, asking Cecilia to take care and do her job correctly. Cecilia told Onwez that she takes care of herself more than he does and walked away. When Cecilia and Miguel reached the medical house, Cecilia said goodbye to Miguel and told him she was going to rest. Cecilia was last seen on duty in the Open Door colony, and then she was never heard from again. At 8 a.m. the following morning, on June 17th, an employee knocked on the door of the medical house bedroom and received no response. When the employee went into the room, they found the bed was made and a pair of brown shoes with beige toes were on the floor. There was no sign of the doctor or any of her other possessions. She left her white Renault 6 in the parking lot of the hospital grounds. At the time of her disappearance, Cecilia was wearing a blue jogging suit with light trim, a light blue jacket, and white sneakers. The hospital did not report Cecilia as missing immediately. Instead, they decided to do an internal investigation. The director of the hospital, Florencio alias Sanchez accused Cecilia of abandonment of work. They did not try to contact her by phone, nor did they send anyone to her house to see if she was there. On June 19th, one of Cecilia's friends, an employee at the colony, Beatriz Alanger, along with her husband, Julian Sequeira, went to the police station to find Cecilia's whereabouts. By the time police began looking for her, Cecilia had been missing for 48 hours, and her room at the hospital had been already remodeled, which erased any clues that may have been left behind. The police were also unable to look at the colony's records. The sheet for the 16th of June had been torn out. The Renault 6 was still in the parking lot, however. Cecilia had just filled the gas tank, so it should have been full, but it was empty. Miguel Cano said that shortly after saying goodbye to Cecilia, he saw two dark vehicles enter the colony and go to Medical House. One was probably a funeral van for the inmate who had died, but no one knew where the second vehicle came from. Another inmate said that she saw the doctor tied up and beaten in the same place. Nothing came from the forensic investigation of this claim, and neither claim was taken seriously because they came from patients of the colony. Someone claimed to have seen Cecilia in the swamp on the property of the colony. This couldn't be verified or ruled out, and there wasn't enough funds to drain the swamp. Years later, Marcelo Perilli, a lawyer for the Giubileo family, said, "If they supposedly killed her in the colony and wanted to hide her body, that was the ideal place. They said there was no funding for drainage. A barbarity, just as it is also a barbarity that there is a swamp in a place where there is displacement of people, even more so in a mental health institution." Cecilia's apartment in Lujan was searched thoroughly, but nothing was missing. The police did, however, find a wallet belonging to the doctor that had been left behind. Cecilia normally carried this wallet with her when she was working. The 48 hours in which Cecilia was missing, but wasn't being searched for, could have led to solving the case. Because the police had few leads, they asked parapsychologist Lenore Hernandez to help in the search. She went into a trance and saw that there were human remains in the pond on the colony grounds. The pond was searched, and there were human remains in it, but they did not belong to Cecilia Giubileo. Instead, they were the remains of a patient. Sometime after Cecilia's disappearance, a recording arrived at the hospital. The recording was of an actress pretending to be Cecilia. It asked that they stop looking for her, saying that Cecilia was at peace. The biggest problem with the investigation, as far as the police were concerned, was that the only people who could have witnessed what happened were institutionalized. The police didn't believe they could trust anything the patient said. Cecilia has not been seen alive or dead since her disappearance on June 16, 1985. Was she murdered? If so, why? Some believe that the hospital was trafficking organs and they killed Cecilia as a result of either her finding out or for her organs. Others believe that she was killed for political reasons. There are some that think she was killed in the tragic end to a love affair with a nurse from the colony. Some people believe that she is still alive and escaped abroad, possibly to join a sect. Some say she was kidnapped for ransom, but no ransom was ever asked. Marcelo Perilli said that a major mistake was that it wasn't originally investigated as a disappearance, but was assumed Cecilia disappeared voluntarily. According to Cecilia's niece, people disappeared in there, but especially patients who had light eyes. 7 years after Cecilia disappeared, Florencio Sanchez was arrested for corruption. 6 others were arrested along with him. What happened to Cecilia Giubileo? Was she murdered? Did she disappear on her own? Why did the hospital try so hard to keep it from getting out that she was gone? Were they involved in her disappearance? What do you think? Leave a comment and let me know what you think. Thanks for listening to today's episode of That's Ready Mysterious. Join me next week for another captivating mystery.